did you guys know that we are right in the peak time for lightning strikes, July and August? It's lightning strike time. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, actually, I did actually know that summer was more prevalent for lightning strikes because lightning strikes are most common when you have warm temperatures and you have humidity.
Okay.
Those are the kind of factors that you need to generate, the electricity in the sky and the ability to transmit it to the ground. And so July and August are peak months for lightning. And do you know what state has the most lightning strikes? I know you know this. Just say the state that comes to your mind.
I guess Texas.
Oh no! What's the state you always talk about when we talk about bad things?
Florida.
Yeah, exactly. We love you, Florida. It's nothing personal.
I guess people get struck by lightning there a lot?
Yeah. So Florida and Texas are the top two. Texas is the other one. I think Texas too because you have similar conditions of heat and humidity, but also the size of it. I think Florida is way ahead, like in per capita lightning strikes, but Texas has a lot too. I think just because of the size.
Yeah.
So every year there are estimated in the United States to be 40 million episodes of lightning striking the ground. Okay, not striking people, but striking the ground.
Yeah.
In that same year, about 300 to 400 people will actually be struck by lightning. So that makes that every year your chances of getting struck by lightning are about 1 in a million.
How many die?
So that's a great question. So I'm gonna ask you guys what you think. I was way off. So what I'm gonna ask you is, of the people who are struck by lightning, what percentage of them do you think die? And I'm gonna tell you I was wrong by a lot. So don't feel bad. Because whatever you're gonna
25%.
25%? Amelia, what do you think, buddy? How many out of 100 people if you get struck by lightning, how many are gonna die?
Percent-wise,
Sure.
I think it is very small.
Okay.
I'm going to guess 10%.
Amelia, you are absolutely 100% correct.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you know that? Or
No,
did you just guess?
I just guessed.
He studies lightning.
You're very
Yeah.
right. So
I
I
do.
figured that,
I do.
I thought that it was going to be more along the lines of 50%.
Yeah.
Because just knowing,
Yeah.
how devastating lightning can be. But yeah, it's actually like 10%. So 90% of people that are struck by lightning survive. So every year you're looking at 20 to 40 people that die out of the 300 to 400 people that are struck.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about lightning, so all right, here's another question for you guys. Do you know how much power a lightning bolt generates?
No.
Like how many?
Volts?
Watts?
Watts?
Oh, gosh.
I'm going
I
to say
have no
something
idea.
that really is going to make me laugh.
What? No, I don't.
1.21 gigawatts.
So what does that compare to?
I can't even imagine that.
It's funny, I'm
I have
laughing
no
because that's
idea
from like
'cause
an
I
old
don't-
movie. You ever
oh.
seen Back to the Future where they're talking about
Yeah.
a bolt of
Oh.
lightning, 1.21 gigawatts? That's actually
I don't know the line, but yeah, I've watched Back to the Future.
So it's a
I have
gigawatt.
seen it too, yeah.
So,
but
so
I don't
actually,
know like
the
that.
thing about lightning, so gigawatt is kind of like an average lightning strike. So so that's billion watts. Okay, so for example, like the electricity in our house is 120 volts at 15 amps. So wattage, that's like 1800 watts. Okay, because you multiply volts times amps.
Yeah, like what's like the normal thing for like a light bulb?
It's
your
like
house.
well,
I
it's like
couldn't tell
40
you.
watts.
Yeah, so that's like 40 times.
So this is 1.2 billion.
Dang.
Yeah, giga is billion.
So
But the
just
crazy thing is that
billion light bulbs.
yeah. But the crazy thing is
Crashing on
that
you.
that's just like the low end. Like the high end can actually be a terawatt. So
Yeah.
that's what trillion? Yeah,
Yeah.
trillion watts. So we're talking about an insane amount of power, which is why I thought that the fatality rate would be
Yeah.
much higher.
So this is like a side question about lightning.
Bring
but
it.
Does lightning come from the ground or from the sky? There's like this
So-
weird thing.
So the lightning, the
I've
electricity
never-
charges up in the sky.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like a current going through a wire like that. It comes down to the ground. So it's discharging from up above. Yeah, it's
Okay.
not like the electricity's on the ground.
I know, but like for some reason there was like this, I don't remember, like some kind of study that they were trying to find about that. Like,
About how to predict lightning strikes?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I don't know why I would ask that if I didn't like see it somewhere.
Well, it is discharging. Well, you notice too when you see lightning,
It like almost looks like it's like
coming
you don't
down.
know where it's like,
You don't know where it's originating from?
yeah. Like sometimes it looks like it's coming from the ground.
It
Sometimes
almost looks
like it.
instantaneous, though.
Yeah, like it looks like it's just like, I don't know.
So I have another question for you guys. How close have you been to a lightning strike? Have you ever seen one like really up close?
No.
I've seen some like out in the distance, That's about it. I've never been like this close to
I'm
one,
gonna tell you
though.
guys a story, and this is gonna sound unbelievable because I don't even believe it myself, but this is absolutely a true story. So when I was younger, I was like a teenager, and I was in the car with my parents, and it was kind of storming, and there was like lightning off in the distance, and I asked my mom, I can't remember if it was my mom or my dad. I said, "How close have you been to a lightning strike?" And I'm not exaggerating, and I was old enough that I remember this pretty accurately. Like within a few seconds, lightning struck a telephone pole like right next to us.
Oh my
nice.
gosh.
And my parents were like,
That
"Oh,
close."
That close."
Yeah.
And I was like, that was the weirdest thing ever. Like that is a
That's
true
insane.
story. I don't know if my parents remember that.
Does
but
lightning strike the same spot twice?
It can, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's like
Yeah, sometimes
that's like a
you'll see it
myth.
go
Yeah.
clack, clack, crack, crack. So, I actually have treated a lightning strike victim. They're very, very. There's only 300 to 400 per year. So, as a doctor, when I was in training, it was in Kentucky. There was a guy on a motorcycle that got struck by lightning, and so when he got hit, he sustained injury from the lightning, but then he crashed his motorcycle, and so he was a
Okay.
trauma patient.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I was general and trauma surgery, and so we had this guy come in that had gotten struck by lightning, and
It's scary.
yeah, crazy stuff. So fortunately for him, he got, let's see, what's the proper word for it? He got mostly flashover, which means the lightning went around him instead of through his body.
Okay.
And so he did have an entry-exit wound for the lightning, but his internal organs were mostly okay. Most of his injuries were due to the motorcycle crash.
Yeah.
And he ended up living, like he ended up surviving, so he didn't die, which was great.
Yeah, that's
But that's kind of like unfortunate to get struck by lightning when you're riding a motorcycle and having a crash. That's like a double whammy. But so I just want to talk a little bit about like what happens to people like when you get struck by lightning.
that's what I'm interested in. Like
Yeah.
what?
So there's actually
symptoms?
5 types of lightning strikes that can
Okay.
happen to a person. I didn't know this. I learned this. This is news to me. So the first would be like a direct strike. So you're standing out in the open and lightning comes from the sky and hits you in the head or whatever. So that's a direct strike. It's the most deadly because it has the greatest amount of current.
Okay.
But fortunately, it's not the most common. So the next type would be a side flash. So a side flash would be if you were standing next to a tree and lightning strikes the tree, and you know the electricity just keeps going and it jumps from the tree to you. So that's like called a side flash. The next one, which is the most common, is called a ground current. So that's where, like, say, we're standing here, and then across the room, lightning strikes the ground, and then the lightning comes through the ground and hits us.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit us directly, and it doesn't jump to us, but it goes into the ground and hits us. And they say that's the most common type of lightning strike, which is good because a lot of the energy of the lightning then gets dissipated from
Yeah,
where it's
not as strong.
right. So you're not getting like the full 1.21 gigawatts of lightning. Next would be conduction. So that's if you're like on something metal that gets struck by lightning. So say you're on the bleachers
Yeah.
at a football game, and the top of the bleacher got struck by lightning, then that electricity would go all through the metal and then hit you. And lastly is called streamers. I've never heard of this one. So streamers is when lightning jumps multiple things. So it might hit a tree, hit a fence, hit the ground, then hit you. And obviously that one's going to be least because it has the most amount of dissipation of that energy. So when lightning does strike the body, obviously it can be very, very detrimental to your well-being. There's 2 things that get you when lightning strikes you. There's the thermal energy, and then there's the electricity itself. So the thermal energy can be pretty intense. It's said that the area around a lightning strike can get as hot as 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the surface of the sun. So one of the things that can happen when you get hit by lightning is you can actually have burns from the massive heat that's generated. The other thing that thermal energy can do is create a shock wave. Mm-hmm. So you hear of when people get struck by lightning and they get thrown. Like that's a real thing. Like when the air gets superheated, it makes like a shock wave, almost like an explosion.
Yeah.
And so it can actually throw you, like say you're on a motorcycle.
In the
and get
movies.
thrown off. Yeah, right. So that's a real thing. But really what's the most damaging, because most people don't necessarily die of the thermal energy. It's not what gets them. What gets them is actually the electricity running through their body. And this is where things get kind of complicated because the path that the lightning takes is going to depend on a lot of factors, like what you're wearing. Are you wet?
Mm-hmm.
Because electricity wants to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And the path of least resistance is something that conducts, and that way the energy passes through as opposed to getting absorbed. Because when lightning goes into your body, then that power damages things. Like it damages your nerves. It damages your blood vessel. It can make your blood vessels just burst. It can make your big organs like your liver, your spleen burst. So when that happens and that when that electrical energy goes through your body instead of like around it on your skin, which is called the flashover, that's when people really take a lot of damage. And it can also stop your heart. Your heart runs on an electrical system, and I'm sure you guys have heard of a defibrillator, right?
Yeah.
The beep, to stop the heart, to get it to reboot. The lightning it almost acts like that defibrillator, where it can stop your heart, but it also will depolarize it to the point that it may or may not start again. So a lot of people that get struck by lightning, where it actually passes through their body, would need CPR, to kind of get their heart beating for them until things
I
kind
would
of.
imagine it gets like brain damage too, doesn't it?
I'm sure you can, yeah. Well, it messes with nerves, so like
Yeah.
your brain, your spinal cord is one big nerve. So.
That's our electrical current.
Right. So so the electricity is going to like go through things like blood vessels. Like it's going to like through muscle. It doesn't want to go through that. That's like a more resistance, right? It wants to take the path of least resistance. But yeah, the biggest risk of death with lightning is one, the type of strike. If you get struck directly, like you're in trouble. Like that's not good at all. But fortunately, that's not the most common at all. It's much more common that it's going to strike something next to you and then hit you, or it's going to strike the ground around you and then you get some. And that way you're not getting that full, billion watts of energy coming through you. But then from there, the next question is the lightning going to come around you, come through your skin, like on the top of your skin, or is it going to go through your organs? And as far as how you treat lightning strikes, it just really depends on what happened to them. A lot of people do have that. Okay, we'll go into cardiac arrest, and would need to have resuscitation to get them back together. And then from there, it's just dealing with the damage. Like, did blood vessels burst? Do they have a ruptured spleen? Do they have a ruptured liver? Are they paralyzed? Because it can actually fry the nerves.
Yeah.
Is there muscle death? Are there thermal burns? With lightning, there's just a lot of different things that you have to treat. And it is something that's pretty rare. I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm lucky. I'd say it's unusual that in my career I've actually seen someone struck by lightning because, there's only a couple 100 to 300 per year.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the one I saw was, actually pretty mild. Really, his injuries are more related to the fact that he crashed his motorcycle. But yeah, it's kind of wild stuff to think about just how powerful lightning is. And, as far as being safe with lightning, obviously, don't be outside when it's thunderstorming.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
that
the
whole,
big
like,
one.
go-
Men are much more likely to get struck by lightning.
Because they like to go outside and look at storms.
Yeah, like play golf in the rain. Hold up a
My dad,
golf club. Yeah.
every time it was like tornado warning, y'all go in the closet, and he'd be out there
Yeah.
in the front yard, just
With
like
his camera, like, where's the tornado?
hmm.
But yeah,
Just,
crazy
like,
stuff.
wondering.
So lightning, be careful. Don't let it strike you. It's bad for you. So
Yeah.
if you have any
Who'd have
comments
thought?
about lightning, please leave us a comment. Love to hear from you.